We're going to go ahead and get started with the afternoon session. Welcome back, everyone. The first presenter this afternoon is Francheska Perepletchikova, who's going to talk about DBT for children.
Well, some of it will be about DBT for children.
This one?
Let me see. Can I...
Well, wait, we're recording it, so we want to have it.
Oh, all right. Well, how are you going to do that? Okay, you can Good? Good? All right, so I was just thinking, if you think that I'm going to stand behind this counter in the latest couture from BCBG, you have another thing coming. So, Alan. When Alan first met me, he asked me, why am I so tall? And I answered, this is the only way that I can contain my ego. You know what? My ego continued to grow, so this entire speech is going to be about me. When Alan heard the word ego, he immediately recognized a potential behaviorist and a researcher. What he did not recognize that I was actually neither. I just wanted to go to Yale, feed my ego. And the last thing that I wanted to be was actually a researcher. Really? Grants, IRBs, indirect costs, direct costs. Apparently my unconscious knew those words, even though I didn't at the time. And I was not very well versed in the dynamics of my psyche. Alan was not well versed in dynamics of my psyche either, so he projected his wishes onto me. Now I'm standing, in front of you, half ego, half Alan. What Alan also did not recognize was that I did not like children, especially young ones, especially with problems, especially with bad behaviors. So you know what he did? He made me a therapist at the child conduct clinic. You know what he made me do? He made me once sit down on the floor under the table, pretending to be a cat, and meow while attempting to do an assessment with the child. Guys, is that true? Yeah, the therapist for conduct clinic over here. Yep. Well, he also tormented me for 6 straight years with rigorous supervision, during which he continued to run around his office, apparently trying to put me in a dissociative state, which endured for my entire graduate education, and I strongly believe that's the only reason why I graduated. What do I still remember? When Alan would enter psychology department, his students would scatter and hide. You know why? Because Alan had a formidable habit of catching the unlucky slow ones and grilling them in the corner. Here we go, Andy. On the material of the classes he gave 2 or 3 years ago. That is not a joke. My current speed, agility, and lanky form are all results of that training. Well, there was one time when I couldn't run. My dissertation defense. Alan started it with asking the questions on the Yale modification class that he gave during the first semester of the first year I had at Yale. Luckily, I was 8 months pregnant. So I could get away with making unintelligible sounds in Russian. My dissertation defense actually ended rather quickly with the entire committee saying, go home, please, just go home. Fast way to defend. So, as we all know, unfortunately, dissociative states do not protect from PTSD. So I have a lot of unresolved issues for my talented Alan. One that endures to this time is a feral terror I have around children with conduct disorder. So for my career, I have decided to actually go to the other side of the spectrum and do leisurely treatments with nice, emotionally sensitive kids. But oh no, Alan inside my psyche demanded research. So I acquired another PTSD from doing 2 randomized clinical trials at the same time. I don't know how it happened, by myself with no co-PIs. So I'm here today to tell you a little bit how it went. And I just wanted to let you know that I am currently a my expertise in dialectical behavioral therapy, which Ellen calls diabolical behavioral therapy. I do know about that, Ellen. So, which could not have actually, it couldn't have happened because at the time, Ellen again tried to ruin my life by setting me up with Dr. Kessler, who's not here right now. But Dr. Kessler at that time was very inspired by another student of Dr. Alan Kazdin, Matt Knock. So he thought that I was just as good as Matt Knock. I quickly disabused him of that notion, and which allowed me to actually do research that I wanted to do. So here, pretty much what it is. So this is a trial I had at Cornell because Yale threw me out. And this is the one with the easy, sensitive kids who have disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. I cannot give you a lot of detail what DBT for children looks like, but as you probably all know, the DBT has been developed for adults with borderline personality disorder with severe suicidality self-harm behaviors and has been adapted for adolescents by Alec Miller. And now I'm here to tell you how it went with downward adaptation to pre-adolescent kids. I have some of my therapists here who have been doing this research with me. I'm greatly, endowed to them as well for helping me out with that. So DBT was actually for children is half of DBT for adults, which is usually 1 year. So I made it into 32 weeks, and it has been tested against treatment as usual, whatever Cornell usually would give. And the majority of that was CBT and a lot of pain. Now, what I want to highlight here is mean age was 9. We didn't have that many kids with PTSD, actually 1%. So look at this. Suicidality, and we actually really were serious about looking at suicidality and self-harm because we wanted to make sure that children actually meant business, that they actually were suicidal, wanted to kill themselves, and actually self-harmed. Look at the percentage of kids. Average age is 9. What else I want to highlight? Okay, so only 72% were not on psychiatric meds for this study. What we're looking for was visibility and initial efficacy. This is one of my interesting results. We had 0 dropout rate from DBTC, which is 32 weeks, an hour and a half sessions once per week. These parents came in hungry. They didn't know what to do with these kids. They were saying, I want to kill my kid and I want to kill myself. Please help me. But apparently that was not enough for them to do routine treatment because we had 36% dropouts from treatment as usual. Now, almost 90% of sessions were attended in DBT and less than half in treatment as usual. So there are all kinds of things in there. One thing that I want to highlight is my cherry on the top. Psychiatrists, we're not needing you anymore. The results that you're going to see is without meds. So more than 3 times as many kids in treatment as usual were put on medication. Only children who came into the DBTC group retained on medication and actually titrated down. Not one child was put on additional medication during the trial. So results without meds. Our main efficacy was CGI, which was rated by independent clinicians, how the child was doing in comparison to baseline. Response rate was either much improved or very much improved as usual. These are the results. More than 90% of kids responded in DBTC versus 45% in treatment as usual, and we actually improved outcomes at 3 months follow-up. Now, remission rate was was defined as at least 3 months of not meeting criteria for DMDD in order for us to say into remission, and we had 52% versus 27% in theory. All right, so what I wanted to say is, okay, this is at the beginning, we actually had significantly more kids with aggressive behaviors in DBTC. And what I want to highlight here, this is CGI results for behavioral outbursts. At week 16, we were already doing much better than treatment as usual at week 32. And we had 76% of them on remission in CGI outbursts. Now, CGI mood, similar results. We were doing much better at week 16, in 3 years, 632, 819, and 86% at post-treatment and follow-up. And the combined scores. So we had 90% of kids remit at that. So this is CGAT. This is clinical significance rate for DVT. It did not happen for treatment as usual. So of course, being a student around Kazdin, I had to look at mediation. And what we saw was actually that number of sessions, session duration, therapist satisfaction, so it wasn't enthusiasm of the therapist for the treatment. Child compliance or parent compliance did not have significant mediation effect. What we did find was what DBT is supposed to target emotion regulation. So at follow-up, we had significant mediation effect for all of the main major scores. All right, so I'm not going to go to highlight other than without meds. Now, this is residential care. So these are very severe children who are so severe they cannot be kept at home. Now, with these kids, we had only boys because we didn't have enough girls to randomize. It was a very interesting study when I moved in. How do you do research in residential care? You put like a cross on the child's head, say you do one intervention with one kid and the other one. No. At that time, they were constructing new dorms. I had a luxury of randomizing kids into 2 dorms with their own staff, with their own therapists. So there was very little cross-contamination. And we treated staff that were with kids the most as parents. So they were in the parental role. Everything that parents in the DMDD trial learned, staff did. We did not train therapists. We did not train teachers because they were with children in both conditions. And parents, unfortunately, attended less than 1/3 of training sessions. So they were indeed not trained. And you will see the results of this. So this is DBTC versus treatment as usual. This was enhanced treatment as usual. We tried to make sure that all of the components of the conditions were closely matched. Twice a week skills training, once a week individual therapy, parent training. Parents were invited to do it in both conditions at the same rate. We had the same reinforcement schedules in both dorms. So kids were average age was 10. Of course, it was much more severe population. As you can see, that most kids were on 3 or more meds at the time. Again, very interesting. The IQ, mean IQ, was almost borderline intellectual dysfunction. So you can actually do this intervention with children who does not have high IQ. And again, suicidality is pretty high in that population, and neither one of them have gone to psychiatry. Okay, so what else did I want to highlight? Only 6% of this population are not on psychiatry. So this was an equivalence design because these children were a captive audience. We were not thinking that they're going to attend DBT more or less than the treatment as usual. We just wanted to see if they're not going to run screening. So indeed, we didn't have differences. The only thing I want to highlight was that parents attended very little of the sessions. Out of 20 sessions, they attended 5 sessions in DBT and 2 sessions in treatment as usual. So CBCL was our main outcome measure because we had a very range of psychiatric conditions. We wanted to capture as many as possible, and that was before the DMDD diagnosis was introduced. So what you're going to see in the rest of the slides is going to be exactly the same pattern. Please remember, staff report was our main measure of outcome because they were with kids the most, and they were trained. So the environment was training how to receive these children, how to support these children. Teachers were not trained, and parents did not attend those trainings. Even though my therapists were just trying to bend backwards, trying to get the parents to maybe call me, Skype me, come and see me when you're here to see your own child. Come on weekends. Whatever we're offering, just had this attitude, here, fix it. A very big problem with that because these children were not with them. They had a luxury of just dropping the kid off at residential care and didn't have to bother with being with the child and enduring the counter outbursts. So there was very little motivation for the parents to actually attend, and this is some of the things that I'm considering to figure out how to do this kind of a study with bringing the parents in, what kind of motivation we can use. I have not come up with a good one. So what you're going to see is going to be exactly the same pattern for all of the subscales on CBCL. Blue is DBT, green is treatment as usual, and red is clinical range. You can see an immediate drop, which is tapering off the intervention, and it includes 3 and 6 months follow-up. This is very much the same pattern result that I have with the DMDD trial. As soon as these children would enter in the environment which we prepared with the parents, parents knew what to do. Parents knew how to validate. Parents knew how to reinforce, and using a lot of Alan Parsons' parent manual in order to help those parents understand behavioral modification and use effective parenting skills. But of course, a lot of it's infused with dialectics and validation and creating a change-ready environment. Parents learn everything that children are learning, including skills, didactics, emotions, plus they have a huge, big component of parent training. And the message to the parents is your child's behavior is irrelevant, capital letters irrelevant, until you clean up your act. Of course, that in a very validating manner, but still the message is what it is. Now, no differences for teachers, environment. No differences for parents. Same results each and every step here. What is that? Internalizing. Internalizing, externalizing, anxious, depressed, withdrawn, depressed, somatic complaints, social problems, thought problems. Everything is lower than clinical significant threshold. Attention problems, aggressive behaviors. That's pretty much what we get. And the main point to me from this particular study was a messier study than DMDD. We had a lot of heterogeneity in the sample. Was that environment is key. And this is the message that I'm taking very seriously, and my continuing to develop the intervention with DBT for children, I'm more and more heavily making the environment understand that message. Right now, in my own clinical practice, I don't even see the child for the first months, sometimes too, until I get the parents ready to receive that child when the treatment of the child starts. Because what happens with that is any kind of a therapy is going to be what? It's going to disrupt the dynamic. Kids don't like it, parents don't like it, and if parents don't have enough sufficient emotional regulation and knowing what to do, we can make the situation much worse. Imagine a temper outburst. If the parent never ignored temper outbursts in the past, now the parent is attempting to do this, now he's doing it for 20 minutes. And then at minute 21, he erupts. What did we just do? We just made the situation worse. We just reinforced escalation. So parents need to be ready and be able to actually do what they need to do. And only then I can actually say, all right, we're ready for the child. So this is pretty much where I am with these 2 trials. And I guess I have a couple of minutes for questions. One of the only presenters actually done it in time. And Alan, you rule. And thank you so much for ruining my life. In Alan's fashion, issues, questions, concerns. That's what you said. I know it. I know you're all wild. A lot of games, huge amount of games used in mindfulness, huge amount of games used in trying to get the child to understand the material. We do not that much didactic. We do most of that role plays and practices. Like, how do you teach child mindfulness? You kind of, give them some didactics presentation on that, but then one of the things you can do, you can have a child balance a pickup thread on the finger. Now, when you balance a pickup thread on the finger, your attention is kind of drawn to that. The child is getting an experience of what it means to be one-minded, right? And when you start to think about something else, or you look away, the feather is going to drop. So these kind of very interesting ways that we had to develop to get the child to actually understand the material through practice, through experiencing. That's like a core of DBT. I also have a lot of cartoon clips that I have another PTSD. That's not Alan's fault this time. I had to sit through my postdoctoral training watching cartoons for 3 years to get the clips out of them in which the character would kind of do something like a skill, either effectively or not effectively, so I can actually discuss it with the child. He'll be much more willing to discuss and kind of process what just happened with the cartoon character. So I have a whole library of that. I have a whole library of all kind of different exercises and practices that the child can be doing. And again, child is not the primary target. Parents are the primary targets. And I'm starting to assess parental readiness as I'm assessing the child's condition. I'm assessing parental readiness, and I'm giving them all kind of messages to see if they're ready to actually receive this, including you are going to learn everything the child is learning above and beyond, and you are going to be the ones in the hot spot, not your kid. When you come to me and you say, can you imagine what Johnny did? My question is not going to be what Johnny did. My question was, what did you do when the Johnny was doing that? And if child had a 3-hour massive outburst, the parents did everything effectively, whatever they needed to do, validated, reinforced, ignored, depending on the situation, I say, awesome, great job, fantastic. What we just did, we set the child on a different trajectory or where the child is going to end up, because we have this transaction between the child and the environment. If the environment starts to react differently, sooner or later the kid is going to adapt their behavior, even if not here. Even when they come in, lay down on the couch and start playing video games with me. Have this whole thing worked out with the parents, in which treatment target hierarchy is actually tattooed on their brain for so many reasons. So these are some of the aspects that I'm trying to do to make sure that parents understand their role in the involvement, and I'm getting the commitment from them from the get-go. I'm doing a lot of orientation, and the thing is, once you orient somebody, you can do whatever you want.